Chris, welcome to the Byte Federal Podcast.
Thank you.
This is a real pleasure for me, honestly, because every time I've talked to you, including lunch, I learn something completely new, not only about you, but about the world. You have a depth and a span of knowledge that covers so many topics. I'm super excited to share some of that knowledge with our audience today.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for making the trip down here and doing it in person. That's awesome.
Everything's better in person.
So I think the place to start, or where I'd like to start, is maybe if you could just share with our audience like how you got started in finance. And I know that skips like 50% of your career, and then to where you got, how you got to Hyperion Decimus and starting that.
So, non-professionally, it's my mother's father, Big Lou Cocarulo, no college education, ex-U.S. Navy, World War II, was stormed the beach.
Wow.
And used a GI Bill to start Plymouth Lumber.
Okay.
In New Haven, Connecticut. This is a wholly different stock market back then, an investment market, but he knew that you need to create money with money to the best you can as a pauper or a plebe or a laborer or a non-connected human being, and just kind of went Benjamin Graham style into primarily utility and industrial stocks.
Okay.
And reinvesting dividends, knowing I don't need any of this money now, I may need it later. And so when I was a kid in parochial school, not only did he teach me about that process, he would literally, either show me the Wall Street Journal or Barron's, or take me to see a ticker tape, and we would just have conversations about that. And I learned to look to the investment space from him. Professionally, it started right out of Emory at Morgan Stanley.
Okay.
But I had been trading since I was 17. I think I was one of the earliest E-Trade accounts.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So Morgan Stanley, you were an advisor.
So back then, that was they hire a bunch of people and
Right.
you do a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Some was on a trade desk market making. I ended it in the private. This is before even managed money or fee-based advisory even existed. I did very first trade was oil, then learned options.
Okay, so you were not client facing. You were on the trading desk.
So they make you do calls regardless of whether you're calling institutions or retail.
Right.
And I didn't really even know because
Okay.
they would give you lists and then you would shadow certain people. And then an Irish guy, Richie Dwyer, taught me options. And then I got all these options book.
Wow.
So, lo and behold, it became an options principal, and then swap stealer. Went through that whole thing. But yeah, ended on the private wealth side. And I realized that's not what I wanted to do, because that's kind of a weird shell game and not how portfolios should be constructed.
Right.
I mean, no offense to people with saying that, but that's not how to do it.
Right.
And I know how to do it. So I started my own company in 2010. Largely 08, 09 was scarring. I did extremely well because any idiot could short back then. And
I did really well shorting too, but then I continued to short.
So,
in 2010 and 2011, and I learned that I'm not a trader.
Well, so why you could have prevented yourself from doing that? You have to look at mechanics of everything, right? Like people always look for why, which is a narrative, complete bullshit, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Mechanics. Well, shorting, what happens when you short the S&P? It costs the prevailing interest rate. Back then it was LIBOR, which doesn't exist magically now for whatever reason.
As of like yesterday or Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, we don't want the retail banks negotiating rates. It's only from on high. That's the different.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
That's a different line item. So you have, let's say, a 4% borrow for the locate, and then you're obligated to pay the dividend. On the SPY, it's around 2.25. So it's 6.25 overhead just to hold the damn thing.
Yeah.
Right. So looking at mechanics, which is how I look at everything, whether it's a wave or it's the body or it's financial markets, I knew that all those trades, whether long puts, long VIX, or short S&P, short NASDAQ, those had to have a certain duration
right
point.
Yeah.
Because you're just burning money. It's one of the reasons I don't like real estate is the overhead of carrying real estate is 6 to 8%, period.
Yeah, right.
And well, I don't want to just sit on an asset that costs me money to sit on.
Yep.
That's logical. So I kind of had that embedded as a trader, and that helped a lot. I still made a bunch of stupid short decisions. I've shorted Tesla. One of my partners sends me the damn Tesla shorts. I get my face ripped off. Wife's yelling at me, and I'm like, the valuation's $12.55.
Right.
Well, this is bullshit. They're not even selling cars. And I just had to eat my lunch. Luckily, I don't use leverage, so like it wasn't a frustrating scenario, not devastating. But it was, 6-figure loss on a trade that I shouldn't have made.
Right.
And totally against everything quantitative and technical that I use to make trades. So not that I haven't been stupid on the short end, but mechanically you can put yourself in a position where probability is on your side.
And isn't that, that is, I'm not a good trader, but it did improve my ability to navigate life.
Yeah.
Like I think participating in the markets is one of the great educations for just dealing with real life, because it shows you, it humbles you. It shows you how much you think you know and how wrong you can still be.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
over and over and over
fighting.
again.
The best fighters are the ones who've gotten their asses kicked a bunch.
Right.
That's how you get good.
That's how you get good at it.
And you don't learn by winning, you learn by losing. That's just how everything's set up.
Yeah. And that was one of my biggest problems, is that when I first started trading, I was trading financial futures, and I was winning. I thought I was brilliant. I was making so much money, and I thought I had it all figured out. And once I kept following that program without any comprehension that I was just on a streak, or I had the trend right, without any understanding of what would cause the trend to change, and then therefore how would I change my trading to compensate or to match that new trend. And then you learn by losing money, and that's a great lesson.
And what a nice and easy one it is to lose money's awesome.
Right.
Like that's such a low level penalty for being incorrect, and the low cost of doing business to learn.
Right.
And as bad as things get, and I actually said this to Tom Longo yesterday, as bad as things are now that we perceive them to be, we're still gifted with semi-functioning global financial markets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a feat to behold, in my opinion, and it's a pillar of human ingenuity and creativity, despite it being weaponized, despite the markets exist to extract money, not to create money.
Yeah.
But it's still something I'm in awe of and respect, because you go back not too many hundreds of years, no one had the ability to fight against inflation by decree.
Right.
No one had the ability to redeploy their time preference or their labor in a currency or transactable form, which that's all money is. Like, if you ask me what is money, it's a transactable form of labor.
Interesting. Yeah.
It has other variables and elements into it,
but that's a component I had not heard of before and not thought of. But that makes total sense, right? When we talk about money as a way to transfer value, as a way to store value, that value, a lot of that value is coming from your labor, right?
I would argue that money doesn't store value; assets store value. Not to
in fiat terms, right?
Well, yeah.
And Bitcoin was redefining that,
because people equate fiat with money and fiat by decree, right? Like fiat is not money,
right?
It's currency, and I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole now, but well, let's step
back, because 2008, 2010, you started Hyperion.
Yeah,
Decimus.
We had now HD is the crypto version.
Okay.
That began 2017, July 17.
Okay.
So we ran a volatility arbitrage hedge fund under a Florida family office RIA.
Okay.
And had clients from Morgan Stanley raise a little bit of our money. And essentially that was birthed out of 2008 to have a long volatility profile.
Okay.
Meaning all of our exposure, one way or the other, was essentially net short stocks and net long VIX. And during that period, obviously, it was extraordinarily difficult to maintain that profile hedge, so that hedge fund served as a primary function for the portfolios that it was in.
When you said net short stocks, you're picking individual stocks that you wanted to be short, or you were...
This is systematic and quantitative.
Okay.
Like, largely fundamentals don't ever matter.
Right.
Only at bookends, basically. But this was I would say 70% systematic, 30% discretionary.
Okay.
It's difficult to programmatically trade VIX, fixed options, and futures, as you know, because you're plugging into the CME through a front end system, either TT, CQG. So it's a lot easier to trade equities plugging into a trade station, interactive brokers, a thinkorswim, for example. So there were some by hand, some by algorithm. Very similar to Libertas Fund, which is some by algo, some by hand. We just really compartmentalize everything. And that was awesome and fun, but it was just not that exciting because we didn't really believe in the asset class any damn way.
Right.
And then lo and behold, the intro to Bitcoin came, poker in Costa Rica, then wife fell in love with it.
Poker in Costa Rica is how you learned about Bitcoin?
With my brother-in-law, actually. And we won and got paid in Bitcoin. And I'm like, I literally said, this is the magic internet money everybody's talking about. And sure enough, it moved through everything beautifully. I'm like, man, I got to do more research. Read the white paper. My wife wanted to mine. Then Ethereum comes out 2014. We're just getting full down all the rabbit holes, full orange pill. And then a couple of my other partners liked, because we always have this anarcho-capitalist Austrian ilk, this overarching libertarian Ron Paulian Americanism, American populism, or nationalism. And one of my partners is Chaim Bodek, who famously whistle blew all of Wall Street between 2011 and 2013.
Was he involved in the...
He's Mr. Dark Pools.
Right. The guy that was pointing out all the front running that was taking place in the algorithmic trading in the black box servers that were set right next door to the exchanges,
in New
right?
Jersey, correct. And
oh my God, dude, we have a connection there.
Spiritually?
No. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that later. No, that's so wild. I can't even remember. I was working in finance, and friend of a friend told me about this guy, and we got together on a call with a couple of attorneys in Miami, and I think he was in the call.
Yeah.
And we were like, how can we turn this into a class action lawsuit? And it was just really hard. We couldn't find a path to
to fight the system,
showing that these fractions of a cent of theft were massive. And the SEC was essentially kind of blocking it.
Well, they were complicit, essentially. And just like they are with the choke point 1, 2, 3, carry the 4.
That's wild. I didn't know we had that connection.
Yeah, so he's been partner since we built Hyperion Decimus.
Okay.
And this is, almost the 7th year, 6th in audited terms, because we were prop initially because we didn't know we wanted to represent people's money in the space yet.
Right.
But because we were already tuned that way, when we then saw BitMEX, we're like, oh my God, this is incredible. Okay. This is before the panic 1,300 point rise in 17. We were already in. And so we officially started putting prop capital, I think it was around 4K, July of 17, before it ripped to 20 in January of 2018. And just doing, the kimchi our thing. And
okay. I'm not familiar.
So that was the delta between Korea and US. And really, Bitstamp, to this day, that was our very first sex exchange account. And we still have that account in our fund.
That's awesome.
It's rad. But we were just enamored by the hardness of the monetary principles behind Bitcoin, the decentralized. Remember, there's only 6 assets by then,
at that time. Yeah,
Ripple, Dash, Bitcash, Litecoin, etc. And then I think Ethereum Cash was 18, or ETH
you mean ETH Classic?
I can't remember exactly when that fork is, but a contained amount of assets to effectively dethrone hundreds of quadrillions, or 4 or 5 quadrillions of legacy assets. So we were like, all right, fuck it, we're closing the vol fund, which we ran both.
You guys went all in early then.
Yeah.
And your clients went with you. They're like, let's go.
No, they said, you guys are idiot psychopaths. We convinced 6
to
come with us. And then we had a Swiss bank and a family office out of Cincinnati kind of like demand to get, and then here we are 6 years later.
Wow.
Mhm.
And so you're doing a lot more than just trading on BitMEX now. You guys are
Well,
like, how many strategies and how many, like,
yeah, I mean, at that point we were probably 6 exchanges ish.
okay.
And then, I mean, we have 122 DMA connections. We actively use not about a half dozen sexes, a half dozen
Define sexes for
centralized exchanges,
Mhm.
3 dexes, decentralized exchange, the CME, which is also a centralized exchange, and then between 6 and 10 primes. Like yesterday we did, I like the secondary market. It's the realest market in the world because you're actually negotiating the price man to man or woman to man, whatever, human to human. And Eigenlayer unlocked, printed a 6, went down to like 370. So we actually used our feeds to primes to place bids as people were going to get wicked in and out, as ventures are punting and retail or whoever else is trying to buy.
Right.
We were like living in the gaps of the order book. And we were doing it without posting lit orders through primes, which was a super heady way to start building into a large position. Not financial advice, not bullish or bearish.
And a lot of this stuff is programmatic, right? I mean, it's
this part is not.
Is not.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
You have to know how to trade.
Yeah, that's a lot of shit going on at once.
It's awesome.
I mean, but that's
Yesterday
there's not like you say it's awesome, but like really, it's like, to me, it's like the NBA or professional football. It's like top of the game, but I mean, it's like it's people at the top of their game that can keep all that straight in their head and do it live.
But why I get
I'm totally impressed by it. That's what I mean to say.
That's
because
like
it's
saying, hey, you did a successful neurosurgeon. I mean, it's just doing our job. Like we have the acumen, the skill set.
But it's a special mindset that can handle it. Yeah,
not mindset.
Yeah,
because trading requires zero mind. And
right, it's being in the zone, right?
Yeah, it's like this Zen combination of art and science.
Yeah, right.
And just you can't replicate knowledge of markets, because remember, markets only price off 2 things: psychology, liquidity.
Yeah.
Right. And once you are there, you never ask why did something go up or down. That's the most retarded, idiotic question I've ever heard. It's how.
Like
how is
structurally what happened in the market.
Everything happens from a positioning standpoint,
yeah,
and then a increase or subtraction of liquidity paired with declining momentum of psychology or increase.
So that's why I said,
like, it's amazing we're making U.S. stock market, equity near all-time highs or all-time highs, where consumer sentiment is near all-time lows.
Right.
Small business sentiment near all-time lows. Something's not matching there.
Right. And this is what I meant when I said it's a great education to help you navigate life. Because when you're in markets without understanding the structure of the markets, you're getting whipsawed, and you're always trying to figure out after the fact, like what happened that I didn't know, as opposed to realizing how behavior goes to extremes or structures go to extreme, and then there's the natural
mean
reversal or mean reversion.
Yeah, I'm a natural built contrarian, so I love those opportunities which don't present themselves that much, because the trend is your friend, as you pointed out. So trends occur much longer time scales than mean reversion events occur, but it's a fantastic thing to be charged with observing. It's really privileged. I do feel very privileged. And then it kind of, when you allow yourself to go through, like I've told you, multiple ego desks, you get better and better at refining your process. And then when you happen to know technology, like we built the very first OMS EMS system for crypto. It was sold to an exchange in 2022. Like we have very thorough tech acumen. And then we know the minutia of driving, or seek to have the minutia of driving alpha everywhere, from execution, which in crypto is very, very important, especially on Bitcoin, which is super scarce, to the logic or neural network of factors for a trading strategy, right? Because if you don't know those components, like if you go to Grok or Chat GPT and say, build me a 2 sharp momentum strategy with a 10 vol, It can't do that because it doesn't know what logic to put into it.
Interesting. And we'll come back to that. So I want people to realize that this is not just all talk. I mean, you guys have put up some unbelievable.
They can think all they want.
Yeah, but you put up some awesome numbers.
But that's just one of the benchmarks.
Right. No, maybe tell our audience a little bit about like the different funds, the different strategies,
so my
and performance, et cetera.
Is risk adjusted.
Okay.
Right. And that's what Sharp is.
Mm-hmm.
It's are we producing our return stream with less beta than the underlying and with more alpha than the underlying? And so I may look at one year we did like 167% and Bitcoin was up 70. Cool. All right. Well, Bitcoin, we're up 30. This year, Bitcoin's up 50, give or take. Well, after 45, 46. I'm actually doing even better than the 167. People look at that and go, well, why do you think that?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's measured in risk adjusted. And then we see the variance of the volatility of the equity of the fund itself, which is actually compressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, and then higher win ratio,
Right.
less whipsaws, less max drawdown per trade. And
Right.
all of those stats go into why I think that's amazing. Plus, our true benchmark is the constituent assets that we're trading. And those are all, most of them are all down year to date, including Ethereum,
Right.
which is, I think, down 10 or 12% year to date. So all of those factor into understanding whether we're going to feel like we're worthy of capital.
Mm-hmm.
Because the moment you understand you're not, you got to return it.
Right.
And so if there's ever a time in this space where there's not alpha to be had, then we're just going to stop.
Right.
And luckily my founders and partners and I, we're self-financed. We built a fund to run our own money anyway. So we're going to do it till we're dead,
Right.
essentially.
And you guys are trading. I mean, you're a hardcore Bitcoiner because I know you.
See,
But you're trading everything.
not everything.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about that.
Back to we have two funds. Libertas, obviously people know what that means. That's the multi-strat flagship. And then one of the best attributes of crypto, like we're doing here, collaboration. We partnered with CoinDesk on a new fund that's called Achilles, which is shark in Greek. We like all of those names that'll outlast the human names. And it's a single strategy long short fund trading the constituents of the CoinDesk 20 indice.
Oh, okay.
So it's well diversified, well represented. And we just like arrived at building a strategy behind it that's based off their trend indicators. And then just talking about how macro affects things. We had already have a macro model in Libertas. We're like, let's push in a linear regression based macro model into a point in time CTA style trading model, momentum model, for lack of a better word. And that was the first time I've ever seen that done.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the strategies in Libertas, but it's separated as a standalone.
Gotcha.
If people just want something that doesn't carry, 10 L1 staked or a lot of Bitcoin off exchange, because we like to look at the space as a plethora of opportunities for alpha, both from an asset protection standpoint, cash flow standpoint, and hedging. Like the owning Bitcoin off exchange is the hedge.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, do I also have to hedge the delta in USD of Bitcoin? Sure, but we're not going to do it capping upside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, I know I ranted. What was
right.
the specific question that I
No,
didn't
it was
answer?
so when going like into Libertas, let's just say, you've got multiple L1s.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
running
the
options.
universe, the
You're
universe of trading.
staking. Like you're doing all sort. Like right.
Mhm.
Maybe give the audience a little bit about the multitude of strategies you're running to generate the total return on the fund.
We're going to need more than one day.
It's massive.
So
Yeah, and it's like, how do you even keep all that straight? That's wild.
again, we're older than I would like to admit. I'm
Mhm.
43 now, which is old enough to have done the arms race of HFT and electronic trading anyways,
Mm-hmm.
and young enough to still outwork everybody. So, I'm not going to pretend that it's easy, but the best way to understand it is, why do I have a cornerback, a linebacker, and a free safety when they're all on defense?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Each position has a primary function and a secondary function. That is not indifferent from, I want a trend following strategy, I want a mean reversion strategy, I want a
Right.
momentum strategy.
Right.
Well, they're all on the same team. They're all to try and grow the underlying equity capital in the fund, but they have different, they prepare and perform in different scenarios,
Right.
under different conditions, and the combination of those different alphas makes it accretive to
Right.
the overall portfolio. Only a moron looks at our best algo, which is up a lot year to date, and say, "Oh, I want all my money in that."
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
And we know that. Most people don't.
Right.
And I'm going to structure a portfolio the way that I know how to run money that's sustainable, repeatable alpha, and will also give us indications of when there's a rate of decay of that alpha that requires some sort of refit of the model, an added or subtracted factor, or just we got to
Right.
punt the strategy.
So from my mind, and you just tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at this like, here you have
You're wrong.
you have the crypto industry, you have the crypto industry, which is highly correlated, right? All these coins going up together and all these coins coming down together. And then you're creating diversification by running different strategies across and applying those strategies to whatever coins you think are
Right.
going to
And
be
so
the
one of
best fit for that strategy.
And how I will admit it's a best efforts, right? Because we just don't have enough data on the history. Like you could argue there's not going to be any L1s. You could argue, well, L2s cannibalize L1s. Okay, fine. There's no DeFi. They've already regulated them out of existence. Well, Uniswap is doing,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not here to argue the merits. I use quantitative methods under a 5-sector
Yeah.
bucket where, based on liquidity, revenue, I can tangibly see what tokens are worthy of trading anyways.
Yeah.
And that's give or take going to be in the top 100 by market cap and liquidity any damn way.
Yeah.
And then we do bottom up curate. Like Eigenlayer is a stock pick, for lack of a better word, right? We got into near early before everybody thought it was an AI token. So there is a blend of what we would call quantamental.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we decided, let's say it's near or it's at cash, who are we to say whether it's good or bad? If it has alpha in the strategy and it's liquid on Kraken or Bitstamp or Bybit or wherever, I don't really care. I'm agnostic.
Right.
The point of putting something in an algorithmic trading strategy is to make money.
Right. You're not making a bet on what coin's better than the other coin. You're simply looking at the coins to figure out how can I extract value.
Right. And
Right. Except for Bitcoin.
Bitcoin's a different animal, right? Bitcoin has to be in the trading portfolio because of its liquidity and market cap. But what we do when we do my second favorite thing to what we did yesterday, how we traded yesterday is my all-time favorite thing because it does take all of the wisdom of all of us at
I'd love to
once.
hear about it.
It's almost like you're an EMT group putting out a fire, right? Like, and it's so much fun because it doesn't appear that often where you get to use all that skill. But with respect to why did we design all these fun, nice algos and not just be like a buy and hold fund, right? We can, when we rebalance, my second favorite thing of being a portfolio manager. So one of the algos up like 50, well, at around up 60, it's going to need to be reduced in its equity in the portfolio of the fund to keep it at weight.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what happens to that extra 10% that has to be pulled out?
Mm-hmm.
It buys more fucking Bitcoin. And guess when we buy it? When it's oversold on a 30-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
We wait patiently to get it. And then it goes off exchange in a qualified custodian. We are hyper diversified. We use 5. So that's the whole purpose of all the trading strategies, is to generate more fiat to accumulate more Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we, in a way, if you're a very short duration person, you're getting some beta involved of raw Bitcoin sitting off exchange, which can be as much as half the fund, right? Sometimes higher depending on the trend. And then the volatility of the portfolio of strategies.
Right. And so the Bitcoin in the portfolio is just long only.
Correct.
Right.
The other elements of why we've configured it that way is to essentially offset or hedge or be accretive to volatility is an asset class in and of itself. I want super high vol because I can tolerate one statement being down 50 and the next statement being up 60. Cool.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 10-point arbitrage in 60 days. That's a hell of a win. Right. So that's how we look at it. This isn't a product that's going to be for sale at Wells Fargo or Morgan Stanley. This is a private hedge fund company where our clients know they're investing next to our money.
Yeah.
It's an invitation. It's not like a product
Right.
sale.
Right.
So it is different, and we were fortunate enough to be in the financial position to do that because we're like one of the only ones
Yeah.
that's not spin out from XYZ firm.
Right. How many people on your team?
8.
Of which they're all traders essentially?
No, our chief technology officer and our office manager,
Yeah.
Sandra, who she's the boss basically.
Uh-huh.
They're not traders, but
Right.
although she traded FX. But the rest,
She has a knowledge of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The rest are.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, that's really cool. So that's really interesting because, so from your perspective, right, this whole Bitcoin maxi, shitcoin, altcoin debate, where do you land in that world? How do you look at at those arguments from the perspective of, man, I'm here to make money and stack more sats.
I mean, that's what I'm here to do.
Right.
I don't give a fuck about anything else.
You don't care about it.
No.
Don't get involved in it.
What do you mean? Do I? I mean,
Like
the
yeah.
blunt instrument.
Oh,
in a lot of
I
these
guess I'm
dialogues.
trying to tease your
I think-
mindset out so the rest of the world can see it, because I think it's I see so many people get caught up in I'm a Bitcoin maximalist and therefore I can't touch anything else. And then there's this whole other world of traders that look at opportunities and understand Bitcoin as the most valuable resource, so the most valuable asset, and are looking at where I can go make money over here and put it into Bitcoin. And then you have other people that think Bitcoin's old and lazy and dumb, and I'm going to go involved in XYZ coin.
See, that is too rudimentary a thought process.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly right in describing the current status of that dialogue. However, the dialogue should be, and they should fucking listen to me, Bitcoin attacks the head of the snake. What is the head of the snake?
Yeah.
The central banks.
Right.
That it needs to have that dumb, singular, primary function
Right.
to be the collateral, pristine, trustless layer to recapitalize the financial system of humanity. Without Bitcoin, what we're facing is doomsday to the nth degree.
Right.
Because it doesn't need to be what we buy and sell stuff with. It can be an L2 should do some version of that on Lightning, like the Lightning Network. But what it absolutely was built to do, and what will do in the future, is replace the central banks.
Right.
Well, Paul, that leaves a lot of oligarchy and monopoly to disrupt, doesn't it?
A lot.
Right. Now, sure, there's a bunch of shit coins, but there's a lot of Web 2 crap that needs to be disrupted, right? And that's where Ethereum and Avalanche and Near and Eigenlayer and then, oh, by the way, hey, who owns all the stock exchanges? Yeah. Can you open an IZ account or a NASDAQ account? Oh, only Citadel can. Oh, can they turn off your trading at Robinhood ad nauseum? Yep. So, do we need a decentralized solution to be able to decide where, when, and how we want to transact? Oh, well, shit. DYDX and Uniswap and Deribit, those are all, no one's telling you what you can and can't do there.
Right.
Beautiful, brilliant projects.
Inspired by Bitcoin.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And that's where Bitcoin's the tip of the sword, both spiritually and financially, right? And learning histrionics of both, you tend to make high wisdom people understand that we have to attack these vectors because we already have been attacked by them.
Mm-hmm.
Like protecting metadata. DPIN, huge. There's a company called Conduit, no one knows of now, coming out. It's mesh layer, private webs, decentralized cloud. You've got projects like...
Is this with Polycarp? Is that have anything to do with him?
I can't...
Okay.
I'm under
No problem.
NDA, and it's not tradable, so it doesn't really...
Yeah.
But,
But this whole idea of that, like Bitcoin nodes running a mesh network, is that what we're talking about?
That's one of the
One of
opportunities,
them.
yeah.
Okay.
And then...
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, and then the block spaces folks who
Yep.
built...
Gabe is
smart-
going to be here next week.
Yeah, smart contracts on top of Light. I'm on their board.
Oh, cool.
I'm only got there because wait a minute. I can do a customizable smart contract on a Lightning Network channel and utilize my Bitcoin and my counterpart's Bitcoin the way we want to do. What?
Right.
And I didn't even know that.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, right? That as a lot of the scam, fraud, garbage that was prevalent in shitcoinery land.
Yeah, but dude,
as that goes,
compare that to Wall Street.
No, I know.
There's not anything
I
that
know.
isn't scam garbage.
And that's what I've always said. I said the shitcoin space is Wall Street 2.0.
But is Perp a shitcoin?
Is what?
Is Perp the purple Solana, whatever?
Yeah, I mean,
because who are you to call something a shitcoin?
Right. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is, I'm hopeful that as this shitcoinery starts to
produce winners,
produce quality product, that we will then reunite as a community around decentralization, freedom, sovereignty. And I can understand the Bitcoin Maxi's perspective because, 2018-19 shit got pretty off the rails in crypto space.
Not because of crypto, because of humans.
Because of humans, 100%. Good point. And it takes a little bit of that like stubbornness and like we're just not going to participate in that to kind of help create a clear vision and help bring people
there's an element
to see it. There's an element of value to that.
Stoicism to
yes,
that.
Right. That adds some value.
But
I'm hopeful now that we're going to become a broader community, right? Because we're now looking at this as Bitcoin, Nostr, so financial sovereignty, communication sovereignty, internet sovereignty, identification sovereignty,
titles.
Right? Which is like Bitcoin popped up, all those ideas hit the consciousness. All this crap was built. 90% of it was scams. People just doing evil to extract value. And then hopefully we're going to come back together here with a set of core technologies
that. We've had
that are
three
going to be
markets
huge
in 2018.
The
funnest part of the crypto space is the capital destruction. And that's a sign of a real market.
Yeah.
Like a feature of capitalism is destruction.
Yes.
Destruction.
Right. The fraud is in not letting it die.
And the stock market, to its credit,
that's a good point.
Used to put politicians in their place.
Yes.
For their chicanery. And now it's been weaponized.
Yeah.
And who has it been weaponized against? Us and our families and friends.
Right.
So while I may, hear, let's pick on one, ICP, like dozens of narratives on no and dozens of narratives on yes. Well, the cool thing about it is you can put a bug bounty out. It's open source. Someone can go and fix or propose a new idea. Like these things aren't dead or not dead. And it's a really interesting feature of the entire space. So what I look at is super investable, and this is in our portfolio, are fully diluted projects, meaning there's no more token unlocks. Right. So you don't have this double-digit inflation overhang on new token issuance. Plus, noting that one of the main reasons I love Bitcoin is its non-human aspect. When you're removing the predatory venture capitalists, vulture capitalists, right, and the private equity groups and stupid, impatient, moronic investors who all just want their fix now because they're idiots and don't know how to invest properly. Those have harmed every project, major projects like Cosmos or Celestia, or there's countless examples where these poor founders have been predated on, not by shitcoinery, but by the legacy financial system which they had to tap into to get their project off the ground.
Right.
And their token might be down 95% off its so-called high, but you can't look at the token, the protocol, the use cases, the founders, and blame them for all of that when you didn't help finance their, did you?
100%.
So,
and that's been been one of the main reasons why Byte Federal has been profitable during all of these bear markets. Friends and families, we raised $500,000 and we've been profitable since inception because we didn't go out and bastardize the company by taking stupid deals right. So we have 3 founders that have the vast majority of the equity in the company, and they just fight the fight and just keep growing.
That's why I'm sitting here.
It's an amazing.
You guys are fortunate.
Yeah, exactly.
And understand the game. And here we're coming to the ninth inning
The ninth inning.
of a 2,700-year game, specifically the American experience, a 111-year game. And if we want to win, we got to fight.
So that's I like the way you frame that, right? You got the American experience. You've got this, what I think most of our audience is aware of, this fourth turning that's happening in America. But behind that is the bigger global fourth turning, we'll call it. Maybe describe from, because I know you are a student of history, with depth of knowledge in that arena. How do you see this big global cycle and this American cycle coming together at this point in history?
It's a lot to swallow.
Yeah, it's a big conversation.
The money changers have been able to augment and extend the synchronicity that would have naturally occurred between what we call grand super cycle. Some people call it K-wave. Depends on what ilk you are. But roughly, it's at the degree of the fall of Rome.
That K cycle, or the K wave, is 250 year cycle?
255.
255.
244, the Fibonacci number.
Okay.
What it's proven to be, what it's fit over, looking backwards, because the Russian scientist Kondratiev came up with this,
Right.
are essentially the generational and multi-generational cycles. So there's a cadence at 50, 51 year, and a cadence at 240, 250. Why? Because it's 4 generations, right?
Dude, it just dawned on me what we were talking about at lunch, that epigenetics might play a role in the Kondratiev cycle.
Yes. We literally just said that.
Yeah.
And not might, it is.
Yeah.
All of these things are creative, and people want to like narrow to one prism to look through things that you just can't.
Yeah.
You just cannot. So I try and do what I call weight of the evidence analysis. And then luckily for us, truth resonates higher than false. My heart and mind and soul have been tuned to lean towards that higher resonance. And we do a probability distribution, and we want to be on the side of probability.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to that level, you're okay. All right, 20% of the time you lose. Cool.
Yeah.
Do I get to learn stuff? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a tax write-off in hedge funds world?
Right,
Yeah.
because you could be right on with your ideas and off on your timing.
And timing's again one prism.
Yeah,
And timing's
it's just
relative.
one component
There's
of
actually
the whole
no
picture.
time. There's multiple timeline.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Maybe your audience isn't ready to hear that, but nonetheless, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I think the point you're making is there's this coalescence of declining forces, even at the astrological level, but at the same time, there's the rise, both in the spiritual side and astrological, as well as the philosophical and financial. And we're lucky that the way humanity has the cards dealt, we have global communication systems, centralized and decentralized. We have the ability to transact in seconds and or minutes without someone telling us we can't or can't. And then largely, at least in America, we have modern weaponry.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability to turn the tide in the face of this transition is probably more in our favor than it's ever been in human history.
Right.
I mean, look at the last
so
turning.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
8% of American colonies men changed the fate of the planet the last 310 years.
Right.
So it doesn't take much.
Doesn't take much. So you have a hopeful view. Then I'm taking away from that despite all the doom and gloom, despite the seemingly massive divide, I don't know how much of that is social influence.
What massive divide?
The divide between red and blue, the divide between straight and
Paul,
LGBTQ, and the divide between
all right.
Ukraine war
Let's
and Russia and
percentages.
blah, 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 blah.
First off, all wars are bankers' wars.
Yes.
So those aren't real wars.
Yes.
Israel.
But people believe they're real. And that's what I'm getting at when I start saying the divide.
Really. They really don't.
Well, at least
they believe the illusion that they're real.
Yes. That's right. And that's what I meant by the social influence.
Now, for the 610,000 Ukrainian boys who've died, it's
fucking real. Yeah.
And my heart bleeds for them. It is a horrific thing that everybody in the West and every human is just sitting there tolerating the mass slaughter
it's fucked up
of human beings. And
Anywhere that's happening.
war on
the planet.
so-called terror, 2020, 9/11 onward, they're still allegedly terrorists. So they lost that. What was that about? Transfer of wealth. Every single one of them, transfer of wealth. And then also a destruction of private property rights, a destruction of history, a destruction of beautiful architecture. All these things are multifaceted agendas by the money changers. Every single war since Napoleon has been structured and financed by them, including the ones now. And notice in America, post-World War II, every war that we've had since then, save Vietnam, has been a proxy. Why has it been a proxy? Because the will of the people and the consciousness, like it was in World War I and World War II, 89% of people didn't want to go to war.
Yeah.
That's not human position is, battle.
Right.
Especially when Iran's not our enemy. China's not our enemy. Russia's not our enemy. Sorry, folks, that's not the case.
I don't think people understand that they can say no.
Well, it's binary, yes or no.
Again, I don't think people understand that
You
they
can
can say no and and not participate, right?
Can you bet on both black and red at the same time?
No.
Yeah, you can.
At the roulette wheel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. In varying amounts, right?
Yes.
Okay, why can't you say no to some and yes to some? Or yes and no?
Yeah, but the average person wants to take a side, right?
The coalescence of these multi-cycles, there's not going to be room.
The whole point of this is
there's not going to be room for the average
The whole
person,
point of me saying this
Paul.
is how do we get people, myself included, to stand up and say no? Right? I mean, people had
Do you want my
people
opinion,
had a
or do you want the
I'm asking your-
historical answer?
Both.
My opinion is that time has come and gone. And that the
Okay.
people who have not prepared are going to be eliminated. There are people who are on their 10th vaccine shot, Paul.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't want to alienate anyone, and I don't want to harm or offend anyone. Obviously, I'm a super
Right.
peaceful team humanity person, but historically, it's when the boot's on your neck that people start revolting.
Right.
Well, my fellow Americans, the boot has been on your neck,
Yeah.
in your face since 1913.
Softly and persistently.
And now
and they've
no
not
rule of
realized
law, no taxation with representation, no purse strings given back to you, the constituent power holder over your employees in the swamp itself. And the hour's late, essentially,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
It's the average person cannot imagine the slow, persistent death that has been implemented across multiple generations.
You mean fluoride in the water, geoengineering,
Everything, right?
high fructose corn? You want me to list all
Right.
thousands of thousands of things?
And thousands of.
But why
of-
is it?
of-
Why do you
of
think
tiny little cuts to bleed you to death? And it's only in these moments of shock and awe where boop, a new population wakes up. Like I think COVID woke up some people. 9/11 woke up some people. Right? So it's in those moments where like this evil agenda gets over its skis. The people go, "Whoa, what the hell was that?"
Mhm.
And a new crop wakes up. But like you said, whenever that happens, at the same time they go, "Oh shit, maybe we went a little too far," and they start to pull back, and all of a sudden somebody is now who was a globalist is now libertarian, and they got curly hair and they surf now and they box and like shit just starts changing. Right? I know
Riding a motorized.
You get what I'm saying, right? Like
yeah.
like this. Oh, like maybe we went a little too far.
I mean, I would welcome everybody.
Slow our roll.
There's beauty in harmony in forgiveness. Like someone
Sure.
who
It's just hard
repents
to hard to understand or know sometimes what's real, what's
yeah,
not.
but knowing is all relative, right?
Yeah.
So I think you have to take people on face value and
Give them a shot.
Yeah, I mean, everybody
Let
deserves
them prove themselves.
second, maybe
Yeah.
even third chances.
All the better if it's real. All the better.
And
for
people
all
who
of
are
us.
parents know that
Yeah.
there is a stoicism to being able to forgive.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great analogy. Being a dad and watching your kids get to a point where like, I'm pretty sure they're going to get hurt doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then going, I'm not going to let you die, but you know, and then yank them back.
I have no problems in the kitchen.
Once the pain starts,
oh, you
right?
want to touch the iron skillet? By all means.
Now
Daddy, it's hot.
You permanently learned that lesson, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I did the same thing.
Right?
I think everybody has
all the lessons that have stuck have been from, and this is again back to trading. Why is trading so good for your evolution as a human? Because you constantly hurt yourself.
Well, in confusion,
yeah.
Right? People, like, I can't believe at some point this should or could have been litigated. Like, I can't stand seeing financial periodicals, app or otherwise, market down because XYZ.
Yeah.
My fellow humans, they're telling you that for a reason. Moreover, they know that algos that read sentiment indicators as well as natural language processing, a type of machine learning, are going to move one way or the other by whatever headline that they're actually printing through AP, Reuters,
right.
Bloomberg, et cetera. So please spare me your narrative bullshit. And I'm at the point.
So then we could look at this too. I never really considered this, but it makes sense to me that big trading desks would be feeding the media what they want printed so that it can impact the algos.
That is definitely possible, but in practice, it's all coming from the central banks.
Okay.
Like I won't name them specifically, but your market makers that are household names that people have been angry at before, they are so far below that hierarchy, they're not able to do that.
Really?
Now, can they collude and get pat on the back kind of things and stuff like that?
Yeah,
there's a prominent,
like get their bankrupt shorts unwound on behalf of their.
I won't out him for doing that, for who he is, but there's a prominent firm now by a person who owns a professional team who is literally a convicted felon multiple times over and spent years in prison. Yet everybody's kosher with him owning a team and having this giant financial firm.
Right.
Like, I just want to present the facts so that you can appraise it for what it is.
Right. Well, you're a rare human being, dude, because I have not seen too many people be able to stand up against the giants and be as successful as you are. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I mean, we're just seeking truth. And then when you don't have an evil bone in your body, it makes things pretty good. Like I don't worry about compliance or regulatory stress, which is all crypto has been doing this professionally, because I do everything to the best of my ability above board.
Mm-hmm.
I have old British common law ingrained in me. I have the principles of the Constitution ingrained in me. I literally have Declaration of Independence memorized word for,
right.
So we just have that leaning to be unafraid, and we're never going to get captured. Sure. Do we read the letter of the law wrong, right or wrong? Well, the whole opacity law is on purpose. He who has the biggest swinging dick of fuck you attorney money, they get to win, right? From getting murderers off who clearly have murdered people to committing financial crimes, being complicit in them, and having no consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's her name just got two years for confiscating $11 billion from people? Who decided that sentence was requisite?
Right.
Did a jury? No. Wait, I thought our judicial system was, I'm entitled to due process and a jury of my peers.
Yeah.
But, and we're so far from that now that it back to the cycles all coalescing.
Yeah, right.
I don't think there's time to present the requisite information to inform people enough to make them conscious of themselves.
I understand where you're going now. Okay, yeah. So right. The time is up. Like there's not enough time left in the cycle
and if you
to wake people up.
Sorry, if you eat processed food, sorry. If you're not taking charge of your financial future, sorry. You're not working out every day, sorry. You're not banging your wife every day, sorry. Like there's just very simple things that you should have already done to get prepared for this.
Right.
You can only help people who want to be helped, Paul.
So the hope or the upside in this is, like you said, going back to, it's a small percentage of the population that can make a huge difference.
Yes. Historically, it's been between 7 and 10%. That's all you need.
And Bitcoin is kind of helping build that army.
Bitcoin is like tip of the sword,
Yeah.
right? When you get orange pilled, it's only become a force for good.
Absolutely.
Like,
I have not seen, if it doesn't affect you that way, you spin out and you become Raoul Paul and you're fucking doing whatever
Raoul's
the
a good
fuck
man.
you're doing.
Raoul's a good man.
Okay. I don't know him that well.
I
You
do.
know him better than I,
Mhm.
but I do see him talking a lot about shitcoins. That are,
Why wouldn't you talk a lot about
I guess you're
shitcoins?
right. Yeah. You're trader guys. I'm not a trader
No,
guy.
this isn't trading. This is merit.
Okay. Explain it to me.
Pick on Solana, for example. One,
Okay.
he I think positively. I don't have social media except for LinkedIn, so I don't really know, but I do know Raoul very well. And he's a sweethearted gentleman and a brilliant macroeconomic analyst and forensic research analyst. So let's just pretend his position and my position for the purpose of this demonstration is bullish Solana.
Mm-hmm.
What makes it shitcoin or not shitcoin, and what makes me a shitcoin supporter?
My problem with Solana is that it's all VC backed and it's all centralized. That would be my pushback on Solana.
Do you know for a fact that VCs still hold all the tokens?
Don't know that.
Okay. And if I told you that they did not hold any tokens and they already liquidated, would that change anything?
Possibly.
Are you conscious of a path to further decentralization, or are you assuming it's centralized because of the people who run nodes? How are you appraising?
No,
it?
I'm only looking at it from the perspective of it was launched by a VC firm. It was powered by a VC firm. It was,
What was the VC firm?
oh, what the hell is it called?
Well, the one you're thinking of is Jump, I believe.
No, Andreessen.
Horowitz? They don't
Is
launch
it?
shit.
No, what was it? Didn't they support it?
Supported and launches are two different things.
Okay.
man.
Okay.
So my point with asking
Yeah.
is, like, you just uncovered, you don't actually have the facts.
No, I don't.
So you're giving subjective opinion.
Yes.
Subjective opinions don't matter. That's why I delineate between what facts are objectively via evidence and what my subjective opinion is.
So what do you think about meme coins then?
I think they're a better trading instrument than stocks.
Okay.
Are they going to solve anything that we pointed out earlier about decentralizing and adding value and being accretive and creating more GDP? No. But would I rather trade that than Apple? Yeah, Apple's worthless.
Explain that to me.
Once, again, this is subjective.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously you can look at, oh, you have this much cash, blah, blah, blah.
You're right.
That's a liability, in my opinion. But again, my subjective view is once something has spread horizontally and vertically to where you can only just swallow whole and accumulate more businesses. They haven't even done a good job of that, by the way, because they're sitting on way too much cash. It's fiduciary negligence that they haven't gone and bought every company that would ever sell.
Right.
Because that would be accretive to their shareholders. And if that was me with that war chest of cash, I would not be buying back 30% of the company, which is self-liquidation. Used to be illegal, by the way, until Billy Bob Clinton, right? Where a corporation could not buy back its own stock. Do you know that used to be?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, again, evidentiary facts do matter to a lot of the analysis. And so because Apple hasn't created anything new, anything good, nothing accretive, and is feeding, right?
Yeah.
Feeding off of us, App Store, feeding off creators of apps. They're
Right,
just
right,
a
right.
succubus.
Right.
To quote
Well, we've experienced that.
to quote the great South Park, they're a
Right.
succubus. Therefore, they have negative value to me, negative value to humanity that is demonstratable,
Mhm.
and their market cap has a very low probability of tripling from here or doubling from here, and a very high probability of getting eroded against,
Right.
either by self-liquidation, see stock buyback, or by competition.
Right.
And historically, no tree grows to heaven. The constituency in the S&P, if you were to take over 90 plus percent, because I don't want to misquote exact, have changed over the last 50 years. And the
Right.
majority of stocks, 91% of stocks, only go down. So how does the S&P go up over time? Well, they changed the damn constituent list based on
Right.
trend.
So
So it's very hard to replicate.
I guess so. I can understand then. I can see from your perspective how the volatility in a meme stock could be
meme token. They're
meme
not
token.
stocks.
Sorry, thank you. A meme token could be
It's a
much more
pure betting instrument.
right. It's a pure
I don't have
gambling,
HR
betting.
risk. I don't have tax
Right.
risk. I don't have ERISA risk.
Right,
I don't
right,
have
right,
geopolitical risk.
right,
I have
right,
only
right.
price and time risk when I'm trading in meme tokens.
Right.
It's fucking beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it from that perspective.
Do I personally?
And I
do
can
it?
also see from your perspective how Apple could be so big and such a giant monstrosity moving so slowly that you see the potential for a big future upside, right? And it's just a piling on of risk as opposed to a piling on of opportunity.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So
that's proven over
but
history.
then so where I'm not educated and where I don't understand is how you go about like valuing these other tokens like Solana and others, where you start to are you looking at a path to decentralization? Are you looking at users? Are you like what are you looking at?
Everything.
Explain that to us so that
There isn't anything I'm not looking at. Quantity.
how do you rank? How would you tier that? How would you say this is the most important thing? Second,
Well,
third, fourth.
Let me give you the objective and then the subjective. Like
Okay.
in a perfect world, you would have a hierarchy of what factors add what n number of percent to valuation. But what stock or crypto asset doesn't matter. That's not how it forms. So you could spit what silos and quantitative and what balance sheet to arrive at value. But value is always and ever will be subjective. So an objective pathway to that is just to make yourself feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So largely it's bullshit. Even saying it is beneath us. But for the purposes of answering your question, you would theoretically look at the rate of change of new wallets because that would be a sign of interest and activity. Well, I can also spin up a bunch of wallets and do that.
Right.
So like, I'm just going to
Yeah,
show
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'm going to undermine every side of it.
Yeah.
All right. Network revenue. Well, okay. That's one metric, but what if an L2 comes in and they're going to cannibalize the L1 revenue? Okay. So that was point and counterpoint. All right. Liquidity, which means how much can I get in and out of it, bid and ask globally across exchanges. All right. Well, that depth may only be because of a venture capital firm, right? Or it might have some esoteric thing where it's the Dow of the crypto supporting buying every dip in the token, like the Federal Reserve,
right.
stocks. So
Right.
point counterpoint.
And aren't some tokens like paying liquidity providers to put a bid, or is that not happening as much as it used to?
It's not happening as much as it used to. Yeah, but what do you think market makers do in the stock?
Yeah, right. Same thing, right?
Yeah. It's called payment for order flow. No shit, Sherlock. I mean, welcome to the big boys. So that's not a negative. In fact, that shows they're smart.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
So, I keep going. I personally, just a few subjective points. I personally really like when companies have very aggressive and active bug bounties, because to me, the chain that is best is the one that then warrants merit on all of its other use cases. So at the blockchain layer, it should be the least hackable, the least buggy, the fastest, or the most interoperable, or the most monolithic, whatever the sales pitch is of what the thing's trying to do, and then what it's specifically trying to disrupt. That's one of the things like I like about some projects that target a specific legacy system that they're there to disrupt. Banking's an awesome one, and you can do it with a zillion different financial services and a zillion different DeFi tokens. DePIN is another thing, upending physical infrastructure, right? That's not as big, I think, as Web 2's software side. Like, think about Microsoft. Have they ever done anything good while we're alive?
Yeah, right.
Name one tech thing that they've done that you've ever been impressed. Nothing.
Right.
How the hell are they in FANG or top 10 or what the hell is it called now? Mag 7.
Yeah.
How? Explain that.
Yeah. Connections.
So, always look at things way to the evidence, and always understand valuation is only and ever will be subjective. All markets will never express a pure intrinsic valuation. There's no such thing, really.
Yeah. Very interesting. It's a very good education.
You want me to go further?
Sure. Let's keep going.
this is fun because we game theory out all this anyways.
Yeah.
Because humans are very repeatable creatures. Like within a standard deviation curve, normal distribution curve, you can be really accurate with humans. And where I find it's most fun or / easiest is when everybody's in the pool and when everybody's already jumped out of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
So what's fun as a personal investor to look at, and fun, fully diluted legacy projects that beat to shit, have very little impedance to upside, and just a few catalysts to kick that off.
Right.
Like one of the reasons, this is full disclosure, I'll give you an example. I started heavily accumulating Uniswap was because the SEC was suing him. They just told me, the SEC just told me their business model is viable and it's a threat. I want that. Boom. I don't even need to look at anything else. I'm buying. But that's me, subjective.
Right.
Other people are like, oh, I can't believe you're buying at the SEC. Give them Wells notice. Well, that was my buying ticket. And it just
such an interesting perspective. It's so,
but
it's contradiction. Yeah, it's
I'm
looking
logically
at
laying out.
Yeah, right. No, it makes sense
theory that makes
when you
me
explain
act,
it to me. It makes sense.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
Naturally, and now more than ever, we're voting with our capital. So there's my vote.
Mm-hmm.
If you've said that those guys you're targeting, and they've done hundreds of billions in revenue. So if you want to try and get a PE out of crypto data to get there, easy peasy. I think they're like $6.58, $7 right now. That's ridiculously cheap in my opinion. Again, valuation is subjective, but they didn't pick out any other DeFi exchange to target. They picked them out. What are they telling you with that? Oh, they already have the deep pockets to afford the lawsuit. Because if they couldn't afford the lawsuit, they're not even going to bring it anyways.
Right. I mean, they're going to attack the people that they know are the biggest threat to their survival.
It's like Goldman Sachs putting a sell rating on something. That's what you need to buy.
Yeah.
So unless they're trying to get something lower so that they can then buy it, like you just have to understand the paradigm you're in at that time. But I think just pulling the person out of you and becoming an analyst and weighing the evidence, and being able, like when I go into a debate, I want to win both sides. Well, how do you do that? You need evidentiary facts.
You all argue both sides
to back that up with a way of clearly defining and explaining that position.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting, man. It's so far beyond my ability to keep all these
people
things.
Want to invest with blinders and not understand a bear thesis. I only go in and look at a bear thesis first. Like take a price fractal. Oh, well, this is saying it can go down this much more.
Yeah.
You get a projection. I don't even look at the upside. I only look at the downside.
Right.
Part of it's masochistic, but the other part's like, where can I be the biggest shark and buy at the cheapest point?
Mm-hmm.
But why wouldn't you do that?
Mm-hmm. Those
are just different sides of an equation to look at. There's still an equation there.
Yeah.
You're missing out on 50% of life if you're
I guess, in terms of people that are trying to navigate, myself included, this massive space that entails crypto. You're really looking at it from, like you said, subjective value. I'm going to trade what I can trade. I'm looking for opportunities without any preconceived notion of who's going to be the inevitable winners. Is that a fair statement?
The market picks winners.
The market picks the winners, not you.
Yeah.
Right.
And so something I haven't said, I don't think I've ever said this. We construct and look at portfolios as if they are infinite, because that's the way to reduce inputs of different time preference, right? So if I'm placing, let's say, Solana into a momentum or stat arb model, or I'm going to put it to a node, I have gotten to the point where unless something materially changes to all we are this permanently long, or permanently short, whatever the position might be.
So you have the big picture. I think this is the trend for whatever duration. I'm going to structure or put it in a strategy that aligns with that trend. And these are the things that are going to make me change my mind.
Mm-hmm. And I know that, okay, I want Physical infrastructure, okay, that's a sector, right? Software, that's literally L1, L2s, right? And then people are like, oh, there's too many L1s. Well, how many fucking software companies are on the NASDAQ?
Yeah.
What's too
Right,
many, Paul?
right,
What's
right.
too little? Like, to me,
Yeah.
there's not enough legitimate, tangible crypto projects. To me, there's not enough.
Mhm.
I go the other way from the maxis.
Interesting.
I think there's a couple cloud, a couple decentralized like Filecoin. There's only a couple of those and a couple really solid like helium, like decentralized telecom. There's not enough. There needs to be way more. And then from this growth, it gets into the ether and everybody's consciousness. And then the winners slowly either accumulate, learn from others, and it just starts pushing it upwards.
Right.
And it actually starts to compete.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the thing that's really stupendous about all of this is it's the first time in my lifetime that I've had a front seat view to a free market,
It is the only free market.
right?
Think about it from a founder's perspective, right? You're not for decades. While we've been alive, the entire time we've been alive, unless you were landed gentry, silver spoon, or the protected class in Silicon Valley, your shit won't get funded, bro. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now I get to just spin it up, write a white
And
paper.
maybe that's that's probably,
maxis
that is
should
sort of
be-
the underlying, kind of pushback I had for Solana. Is I looked at it as like this, this fucking Silicon Valley, anointed, we're going to get on the blockchain
Yeah,
bandwagon.
I
And
mean,
I'm like,
some of them
it's
are
all,
that. I'm not
and so
saying it
my
isn't.
initial instinct is, it's all bullshit. Because I love the purity and the well, and if maybe it's even not that pure, the more and more I learn about it, but I love the, what Bitcoin offers us. And, I appreciate
It is pure.
the input on a way to look at Solana and other coins differently. So because I always am trying to get a better perspective on everything.
And that was just an exercise. That's not
Yes.
my opinion on it.
Yeah, right. No, but it's a
'Cause,
good exercise.
We all get caught, myself included, anchoring or using confirmation bias or being
Right.
just flat out lazy and allowing one little tidbit to get in our framework of thinking. And that's really
Yes.
not doing yourself or whatever that tidbit is justice.
Right. Therein lies like the whole conversation I had last night about social media. Talk about feeding tidbits of garbage into your brain.
Yeah, I really think we need new terminology for it. It's neither media nor
social.
And
Good point.
I was a very early
My
investor.
my psyop feed.
Mark, Mr. Zuckerberg, if you're listening, I was in the seed round prior Series A. I would love for you to come to the light, and you could easily do that by stopping to censor people and then cut off all of the transnational government channels to all of your technology, which you know is a risk to your whole thing. And because you know the financial system, the money you think you have, you don't have. So time is now, buddy.
We're waiting for your reply.
Yeah, I mean, Elon already gets it. He's on Team Humanity. And then what's beautiful, and we've talked about this, maybe this is a good way to like round this off. Because Bitcoin is such a force for good, the esoterics, the spirituals, the new ages, the yogis, the zens, the quants, all of these humans trying to better humans
Mm-hmm.
in a cohesive capitalist system, truly capitalist system, where I'm providing a value service, you're trading an increment of your labor for my value service, and we're just continuously benefiting one another in a symbiotic way. All of those facets of global humanity are actually rising together. It's a really pretty
This
thing
is
to say.
this is why I see Bitcoin as the currency of consciousness,
And that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
because it is sort of like the financial backing behind all these pro-human efforts.
It is.
And I see it happening where it's underpinning all of Texas Slim's work in the Bitcoin or in the Beef Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I see it underpinning, truth in media, and maybe not just Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrencies, right? and or these sovereign protocols now powering free speech. So and just the freedom of transaction between peer-to-peer individuals that don't want to have a monkey in the middle that can tell them what to do, right?
Yeah.
So this is all pro-humanity, all pro and very supportive of this rise in consciousness where you and I can agree on something, we can agree to transact, we can agree to the things that we like to talk about or we believe in or what we want to communicate to each other, and it can't be stopped. And like you said, Bitcoin's the tip of that spear. And when I start to look at Bitcoin from the perspective of supporting consciousness, I also see it as a fractal of consciousness.
Everything's fractal.
Right? And that when I look at consciousness, I see all of existence on a time chain, everything that has been, everything that will be, and where we are in the here and now, and people downloading and uploading into consciousness.
Yeah.
And that is a model for way the blockchain and transactions on the blockchain work.
It's actually a very similar visual to the Akashic records. If
Yes.
you will.
Yeah. 100%.
And, those who know what we're talking about will get it very quickly. But it's not by chance that it's representative of that, by the way.
Do you think that's built into the design?
Yeah, the cypherpunks knew what was up.
What do you know there? That
I'm not going to share it on this.
Okay, we'll talk offline. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
No, and I'm not trying to be
Sure.
coy, but there's just some things that should be sought out.
Sure.
And we'll leave it there.
Right. So there are things that, I mean, this is one of the things I love about talking to you is you consider you're a master of finance, but you let all these other points, either historical, astrological, mythological, influence and use as tools, I guess, to evaluate any particular opportunity or point in time.
It's super empowering, man.
And so, number one, I think that's amazing. I do it poorly at best, but I respect what you do.
Thank you.
Drawing on those resources, in your view, where does that put us now? The election, the fourth turning, right? Small question. Sorry. I know it's a yes or no answer, but
is it? Because we may not have much more time left, I will answer this to the best of my ability. While this is a very cush, luxurious, overspoiled, overindulged, pathetic time in history from a values and respect standpoint, that's where I'm speaking from. And we have such convenience and such little patience, such little forgiveness too. We may not have much time left. We have destroyed the environment, not through carbon, but through pollution. We have created weapons of mass destruction that are in the financial system that in moments can make people destitute. We have a rule of law that has confiscated property rights, personal rights, taxed everyone into oblivion, isolated food production to 0.2% of the population, isolated 99% of the wealth to 0.5% of the population. And we have one more chance.
Which is?
Now. Or we're forever enchained, those of us that remain.
Right. And that chance is standing up, pushing back, becoming self-sovereign. That means financial tools that are outside the system, Bitcoin, food outside the system, healthcare outside the system.
There's a lot of ways to approach it. One of it is just vote with your dollar. Support, actually, get off fucking Amazon. Don't go to Walmart. Don't go to the doctor. Don't buy pharmaceuticals. Don't use Bank of America. Don't use JP Morgan. Not the hard. Just doing that fights 90% of the battle. And
even just get started.
Yeah. And
Just
the last
get started,
10% is
right?
fought by the patriots who are willing to die.
And
for
it's a
what they
lot,
believe.
but it's, when I've talked to people about this, I mean, we do what, we, of course, nobody's perfect. I'm not going to
No.
fool anybody to tell them that
balding.
I'm perfect, but I do what I can.
Mhm.
Right. So yes. Do I go to Walmart? Yes. But do I go drive to the farmer and buy a half a cow 3 times a year? Yes. Do I choose to go to an organic restaurant when we eat out versus Applebee's? Yes. Right. So like where you can have an impact, choosing to make that impact.
And financially, for those who are skeptical of Bitcoin at all, cash. And if you're not responsible enough to take care of your own cash at your own home or place of business,
Right.
you don't deserve that cash to begin with.
Right.
So understand that the move for a cashless society can only be emboldened by a fiat system where they're going to take and control everything that you do.
Right.
And just to
Cash for Bitcoin, people.
round this off with a historical example.
Yeah.
In 1929, roughly 48% of the American population had their own farms.
Right.
In 2024, it's 0.2.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that low. Makes sense.
How well do you think we're going to handle the collapse that has begun in 2008?
I know.
Because realistically, the stock market being up is just an illusion because
It's
it is
an
down
illusion.
in gold terms and
Yes.
in inflation adjusted terms from its super cycle high, which was in 1999. And then real estate is an even larger illusion because of all the costs you have to separate
Yes.
out. Like back away and show more humility and not think you're smart or dumb,
Yeah.
but just understand what we've been handed,
Yeah.
how we deal with it, how we can move forward together for a
Well, you
better
said something to me last year at the Miami Bitcoin Day
Mhm.
that I had been noodling around and intuitively kind of was starting to figure out, but you had the math behind it, which was
good memory.
the average rate of return of the S&P 500 since 1913 and the loss in purchasing power of the dollar since 1913. Maybe tell the audience.
0.83% delta on the two.
Right. Which explain to the audience what that means.
Meaning, the dollar has lost 98.73 of its purchasing power since 1913. And against that, the S&P at 56, whatever the hell it was, 54.60 was up 0.83%.
So basically,
With dividends
if
being
the a novice way to look at that, if the Bitcoin's if S&P averaged a 9% annual rate of return,
you didn't make money.
You didn't make money because it was basically driven by the dollar dropping at 8.7%.
And the rate of change since 1971 is 11.24% of purchasing power loss. Like through the 50s, it stayed in the single digits, and then it just went psycho.
And so translation for the average investor means if you're not targeting above the 12% annual growth rate, you're just going nowhere. You're going backwards. You're treading water at 12%.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I take treading water because that would effectively be the synthetic sound money.
Yeah, right.
So and the purpose of saying that, Paul, is that everything's been gamified and people have been weaponized by their own emotions on purpose through PSYOP, MK ultra level shit. And back away. You're not smart for buying a home in 2019. You're lucky. You're not smart for, nothing smart or dumb. And if you set up portfolios in the right way, it's only 4 quadrants: cash flow, asset protection, speculation and trading, and accumulation. Those are the only 4 quadrants you ever need. And there's a way. I like Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually fill all 4. I like corn. Corn can fill all 4. There's a way via strategy diversification that you can resolve and solve for each of those quadrants.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is why.
That's why you do what you do.
And people are going to hear it and go, go ahead, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman will sit at the table and have an adult conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I pity most investors because they're abject fools and they have no idea the weapon that they are being faced with.
Right.
And I have just too much honor and
and they don't
not try and understand that weapon because it is such a charge to put on someone to represent capital that someone's earned.
Yes.
And it's a very
this is also, I think, for me, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
This is why, thank you. I feel like Bitcoin is one of the only things I feel competent in recommending to people, or confident in recommending to people, because it's like, from my experience in the markets, knowing how much the deck is stacked against you as an individual investor, from a fee perspective, from a structural perspective, from all the risks in all these individual companies, on and on and on and on. If you do everything well, you could tread water.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, it could go horribly wrong. So like taking that upon yourself to go up against people like you on the other end of on the other side of that trade, they don't really know what they're getting into.
No.
And that's even good, and that's even getting more and more dangerous and more complex as we move forward.
Purposeful opacity, dude.
And then once you understand,
why isn't there not financial education in middle school?
Right.
People don't even know how to write a check out of Harvard.
Right.
They don't even. It's people. It's on purpose.
It's on purpose.
For the love of God.
And if you want to learn finance, learn Bitcoin.
And don't go to a finance school.
And then from your comprehension of Bitcoin, start to look at the rest of finance, because it will give you a financial education that you can't get in school.
Look, it's really simple. Read Mises, Rothbard, and Hayek, and then read Basic Economics by the best current living economist, Thomas Sowell,
Mm-hmm.
and then go from there. Easy. The fun part about economics is they bill it as this science. Well, everything's actually a pseudoscience, including science, right? And they're trying to create this purposeful opacity, make you feel like an idiot, and you can't challenge assertions or go look at data or do a string theory mathematic equation. Like all of that's easy because there's finite rules that come in structuring it, right? Econ is not a science. It's a socio-economics at best. And largely it's all a delusion and an illusion and a separation from how the game is actually played and how you can use that game to your benefit.
Yeah. The only time I've ever been successful in trading markets is when I just looked at human behavior and seen it reflected in a chart and thought, everybody's on the wrong side of this trade, or everybody's on one side of the seesaw. And like you said,
understand that some of that positioning element, there are large swaths of capital that have no consequence because their accounts get refreshed and replenished ad nauseum because they're up here,
right
below the seeing eye on the dollar. Like people do realize what's on the dollar. How it's just sad. I've gone from terrified to sad. Like, how do you flip over the dollar, read what that means in Latin,
right,
and know what that symbol is,
and
not go, can we do something about this, ladies and gentlemen, please?
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, travesty, Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, North Georgia, $9 billion to Ukraine, $8 billion in Israel.
Yeah.
Wait, Paul, do you want to send only money to those two, or do you want to send some of your money and my money to our brothers and sisters in our own country?
Right.
You're not allowed to.
No, you're not allowed to.
Because we in D.C. say so.
And we don't live in a democracy. We don't get to vote on any of this stuff.
I think the most peaceful way to go about this would be if everybody could communicate with one another and on the same day just say no. I'm not using public transportation.
Right.
I'm not using the highway. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not using the bank. I'm not watching television. I'm not going to a sports game, and I'm not going to pay tax.
This is what I was trying to.
There's infinitely more of us than there are of them, and we can do a good old-fashioned Gandhi and Martin Luther King style, nonviolent.
That's exactly what I was trying to communicate earlier in this conversation about not enough people realizing they can say no.
If they're banking on you saying no, they create all of these systems around you to bank on you not saying no, but all you have to do is say no.
All we have to, if we can get enough people to just say, we're not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we saw that enough people said to the vaccine, and they had to start changing their tune.
Right.
And
we'll put them on a.
There's a lot of power in saying no. It's hard to be the first, obviously, and the people that do it first and do it the loudest oftentimes get punished the worst. But when we do it in mass, we can have a big impact.
They're so frustrated that they cannot extract their pennies from you and infect their usury into all of your life, that during COVID, they're saying, oh, you can't use cash because you could get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how everybody didn't look at that and go, I want only cash.
Mm-hmm.
You already know, literally, the fractional reserve banking system, at best, 10 cents of your dollar is there at best. What I do know about the system is it's not minus 90 cents is the current balance, if not worse. So just say no, and say no by paying small business vendors with cash. They'll love you because then they don't have to report it.
Mm-hmm. So I can hear our audience saying, who's they?
Oh, God. The globalists.
Okay.
The protected class. The, people that run everything and have done that for a long time now.
Can you describe sort of this pyramid of power and what it really looks like from a historical
I love
perspective?
my children, and I prefer not to get Epsteined.
10-4.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's how dangerous they are, ladies and gentlemen.
That is how dangerous it is. I don't know. It's one of these things where we spend so much time off the air talking about problems, talking about dangers, talking about this world. And we talked a little bit about this at lunch, right? How all of that danger, all of that risk, all of that evil that we can see, especially now with platforms like X, where it's now like the stuff that I see on X now is like heartbreaking. And
what do you mean?
Well, what I mean is that, used to be like pure propaganda, and now you can see some real horrific images and some like unfiltered shit that.
What's a horrific image?
Children blown to pieces in Palestine.
Well, and you didn't see that in Bosnia Herzegovina or Russia?
Not
or
as
Ukraine
much
or
as
China.
I can see it now.
You literally saw someone get run over by a tank in Tiananmen Square.
Yes,
how is that
but
different? I'm just curious.
No, it's the graphic. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What I'm saying is this. I think there's more resources now available for people to see the horrific reality that
rather than just the networks. I mean,
yes,
think about it. Colonel Douglas McGregor says 610,000 Ukrainian boys.
Yeah.
We haven't seen shit of that on ABC, NBC, CNN.
No,
Fox,
right. You see it in,
but
you see
now,
it in the.
Paul, how much did we lose in World War II? Collectively on both theaters.
Millions.
No, it's like 660,000.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
In both theaters?
Mm-hmm. We could fact check that real quick if you want to.
No, that's all right. I believe you.
I'm very close to positive in that range.
Okay.
That the amount of soldiers we lost was, let's round up and say less $1 million.
I think the key word there is you said soldiers.
Soldiers, correct. Right? And then in
this
Ukraine,
day, there's very, very much a blur between who's a soldier and who's not a soldier.
Well, and
right?
then,
it's just an attack against humanity. Yeah. And that's what
people are literally calling humans collateral damage.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And so you're saying the value,
and I'm not trying to, and I'm here saying it's not this side is right and this side is wrong. All I'm saying is we're witnessing evil at
correct
astronomical levels, and we have platforms now that can show people. Right, it's one thing to watch a documentary about World War II and see the carnage with the soldiers, and it's another thing to see civilian homes blown to bits and kids blown to bits that had nothing to do with it.
Well,
right.
That's also every war.
Yes,
I get your point, but like World War II, you think the Germans were the enemies.
No, I know they're
don't.
Right.
Like, all innocent
right.
people are not enemies of anything, and
yet exactly.
the British, before Hitler even fought back, carpet bombed with phosphorus bomb civilian cities.
No, and the Vietnam War was horrific.
Yeah, Agent Orange.
Right.
And then you're killing.
But I think, when you had 3 networks controlling the narrative,
they showed you what they wanted.
They showed you what you wanted. And so now we get to see it all in real time. And I think there's and I don't mean to put this out there in a way that is going to offend people, but there is a value. There's a long-term upside to being witness to evil. And to what I mean by that is that the more we are aware and the more we feel internally, like I can see some of these images and I want to throw up because I'm so disgusted that somebody, no matter how angry you are, would ever do that to a child, right? It's so just like at your core, painful to see that some innocent child had to live through that.
And then you recognize what it takes to be able to do that to a child.
Yes. Right. And so when you feel that, it is as disgusting as that is, the upside is hopefully it's a motivation to build a better future. Hopefully it's a motivation for this small group of people to stand up and say, we've had enough. This is the movement you're talking about, right? It's like there is a role in witnessing evil.
Yeah, but it's part of, back to the big cycle, right?
Yes.
What's one of the best ways to phrase this? Strong men create good times create weak men create bad times. And all that I see when I look around, including to a large degree myself, are weak men. And there's a few key things that have built this infrastructure around themselves. And I think if we remove a few of these groups and structures, we find a pathway to harmony very easily. And what we do know of all wars, not specifically about resources or territory, they are all negotiable. Humans want to do business. Humans want to live in peace.
They do want that.
It's 99.8% of us.
Yep.
And I think it's very important to understand the framework with the magnitude of the severity of what we're dealing with here, but the solutions-based remedies that we can look to the past for and very simplistically and with minimal effort apply them today.
The governance models that we've all dealt with historically, like, fool us into electing psychopaths to a certain degree.
We're not electing anyone, man.
Well,
come on.
No, I understand what you're saying, but the systems get set up in such a way that psychopaths rise to power. We think we're voting, or we think we're having an impact, or, you know.
I think here you
and then
you have a unique situation with Donald here.
Yeah.
And it's a uniquely American one too.
Yeah.
So that's a protest vote, obviously, for him. But if you said that to me in 2015, I wouldn't say that. It's not the same Donald, not the same exact circumstances. But just my humble advice or plea to our brothers and sisters is, do not let them weaponize any aspect of your emotional or financial well-being, and do not give them power over your consciousness by pitting you against your fellow man.
Right. I do see, at least in my feed, I see Donald Trump uniting across races, across genders.
There's only one race, Homo sapiens sapien.
Right.
That's an illusion.
Exactly.
Again, it's a construct.
Exactly.
Oh, well, Paul,
Exactly.
you and I are like half Italian, but we have freckles.
Yeah,
like,
man.
What's Italian even mean?
Right.
Like that, the Italian bloodline is an aggregation of.
Oh yeah, it's everything.
But they divide and conquer, and what I have little patience for currently, but what would reserve forgiveness for these people is those who are immediately going to jump to critique, like, oh no, you're wrong. But that's relative. There's evidentiary fact, historical fact. Everything else is relative and subjective. So I think largely, as Frederick Hayek said, you need to repackage, relitigate, and resell the values of old every single generation. And Bitcoin just helps us do that a little better.
That's an interesting.
Yeah,
that's a great take.
That's why I quote Hayek on everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it does kind of reorientate you back to the basics.
And people also need to recognize collectivist systems like Department of Education, Department of Health, et cetera, are only going to yield collectivist results, none of which are good.
Period.
And they have been propagandized, not educated. Even the so-called Ivies, they're producing unproductive, inefficient employees.
Right. I was telling
that
you
business people like us cannot monetize.
I was telling you earlier, my son just got out of a program called degreefree.co. It's run by Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Hannah, I don't remember your last name off the top of my head, but degreefree.co, you guys can look her up. And it's because getting out of high school, he decided that there's absolutely no way I want to go continue this indoctrination camp. I found Hannah she was doing an interview with Anthony Pompliano. She's a Bitcoiner. And she created a program where she starts from the basics with your child and says, what's the lifestyle you want to live? Where do you want to live? How do you want to live? What kind of money do you want to make? It's not, what do you like? Oh, I like doggies. Okay, you should be a veterinarian, right? That's like, that's the high school advisory model, where this is like, what is the lifestyle you want to live, and how much money you want to make, and what are you good at? What are your skills? Blah, blah, blah. From there, she goes into, it's a series of 5-hour-long meetings, but then they go into like a couple dozen career options that would fit that and generate that kind of lifestyle. And then from there, they whittle it down to 15 and then 5. And then you pick one, and she develops 3 different career paths to get you there, which one is completely self-taught online, no money out of pocket. A medium cost range where you might do some degrees or certifications, and then a more expensive rapid rate where you might go to a technical school or something specific, apprenticeship, et cetera. And it's phenomenal. I recommend for everybody who's like saying, hey, I want my child to be on this path to building their future and coming out into the workforce with, this is what I've done, this is my portfolio, this is what I'm good at, this is my work. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, we need skilled labor. The trades
are
magnificently underinvested, and I hope and pray, because I will fund that startup all day long. Plumbing,
right?
Good. Pool, good. Like
100%.
Just get the acumen to run a functional service that people would want, and I'll back that all day long.
My daughter is
startups have been so like exclusively tech, when shit, I want to finance skilled trade startups.
Yeah. My daughter is on that same mindset. So from 7:30 in the morning to 11:30, she's at a technical college. She's 16. She's at a technical college learning auto mechanics. Oh, wow. She's getting an AE or ASE or whatever certification.
I worked as a mechanic at Mobile.
Did you?
Mobile, yeah.
And then the rest of the afternoon, she's at high school. It's a phenomenal program. But yeah.
Even just for life.
Yeah, exactly. You're learning a skill that you can use the rest of your life.
I took one workshop class that doesn't even exist in Florida high schools anymore. I want to go to trade school for lumber. Not to do anything with it. It's just like a hobby. And then, you look at same thing as we were discussing with L1s. There's so much disruption in economic value that can be created by chipping away at the oligarchy systems and the usury systems, and it just creates this more decentralized, frictionless economy that the end client, like everybody's pissed because they have this crappy big corporation delivered service, right? There's no art to it. There's no finesse. There's no personal relationship. That only happens at a local and small level. You seesaw that to even people are 25% more happy.
Yeah.
Right there. And this is the solution side of the dooms and gloom is so obvious, so simplistic, so elegant, and really easy to do that I'm grateful that position is even there. Because look at your Dresden 1938. You're getting carpet bombed by who you're taught is the good guy, Winston Churchill. You go north into the sea, you're frozen to death. You go south, you might get killed by Hitler's own SS or forces out of Russia. Like that's way more stressful of a time now. So
it's true.
Let's frame it into context, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, well, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome.
And let's do this again.
We'll do it. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate it.